Hello and welcome to the second video in my series. We're building a survey app. In this video, what we're going to do is we're just going to create a page on our workspace, and this page is going to be used for creating a survey campaign. So still within Studio, if we go to our survey workspace, and then obviously now we're inside UI Builder inside Studio. So we've got a couple of pages that are created out of the box, but what we're going to do is we're going to create a new custom page. So UI Builder gives some templates. Loads of these are really good, but none of them really fit the use case of what we're trying to achieve, which is to become familiar with the components. So we could probably use a create record template, but we're going to create one from scratch instead. So for our page, this is just going to be used for creating a campaign. So a page can take in parameters, either required or optional. These can be used inside the page to drive logic, show and hide fields, load records. None of this is going to be relevant for us because we're always going to be creating a new page from scratch, so we can just leave this blank. We'll only want one variant, which is default, and we want the page to be responsive, so it can be viewed on mobiles. Okay, so now we're in UI Builder. We can see that we've got an error here. Basically, Workspace and UI Builder thinks we're in the wrong scope. So if we just duplicate this tab and go to the back end, so we can check what scope we're in. Might have to do it here actually. I don't know. Survey app. Okay, so sometimes when you change the scope or make a change to any settings, UI Builder doesn't respond to that change. So if UI Builder starts acting weird, playing up, however you want to describe it, this hamburger menu here under Developer, they have a clear UI Builder cache. And what we can do is reset the clear the cache, and then refresh the page. Okay, there's our page, create a campaign. Go back into our create a campaign page. Okay, so we can see that that error is gone now. To start adding some components. So while I can configure this page within Studio, because we've got an app embedded in an app, the space that I can see is quite small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the home page just by deleting these parameters. I'm going to open up UI Builder separately. So from here, if I go to experiences and look for my survey, this is a fresh PDI, so getting lots of errors about lots of information messages about guided tours, but I don't want any of that. So I can see this is the survey app workspace I created earlier. And again, we'll go down to create a campaign. Okay, so now we can see that we've got a bit more screen to play with. So our page is going to be really simple. We're just going to have a header and then a way for a user to select the survey and pick when they want the survey to go out and when they want it to expire. So within UI Builder, you have components. So a component can be lots of different things. We'll see some examples in a moment. And those components live within a layout. So let's add a layout first. We can see we've got a couple of different options on how we want these to be, how we want our components to be positioned. So if we just select a single column to start with. One thing it's handy to get into the habit of is to always name your components straight away. While there's only a couple of components and layouts on the component tree, it's easy to navigate. But as these workspaces and pages become more complicated, a strict name convention really saves a lot of time. So what we'll do is we'll give this a name, and we'll just call this header layout. Okay, so we've got a layout now, and we've given it a name and an ID. Now to add a component, there's a couple of places we can do this. So we can either add a component using the component tree, or we can add a component by clicking inside the layout. So what we'll do is we'll just click this plus icon here, and we can see that we've got, when it loads, so we've got a list of components to pick from here. There's lots to choose from. I've not had to create any of my own yet because I found the choice to be enough, and it certainly will be enough for our little demo app. So what we want to start with is a header. So there are two ways we can do text within UI Builder. So we can have rich text or stylized text. If you imagine stylized text as we're adding one HTML element, so it might be adding like a div, for example, and then we can apply CSS to that div. Whereas rich text allows us to embed HTML and then configure that HTML. And what I'll do is I'll just show you an example of both. So let's do stylized text. So imagining I wanted to do a header with stylized text. We can see that I can set the text. So this is a header. I can give it a tag, so div h1, whatever I want to do. So a header 1 tag would kind of make sense for this. And then I can add some CSS. So for example, I could say that I wanted the color to be red. Okay, and that's fine for a header. I've been able to add the element and kind of achieve what I wanted. Also, what we can do is, as I mentioned, we'll add a component after by right clicking on the component tree here. Is you can add a rich text element, and I find these a little bit easier to work with. So we don't have attributes that we set in the component panel, or whatever this is called, I forget. Instead, what we do is we click edit HTML, and then we can we get a rich text editor. And this has two big benefits. So one, it's obviously easier for me to add a header. So if I give this a name, give this a value of create a campaign, and then I could make this big. I could make this change the color, make this red, for example, and that's quite easy to do. Also, what I can do is I can have two elements with two different sets of styles within the same component. So I could add a subheading. So for example, I could say this page is used to create a new survey campaign, and then I can apply a completely different set of styling to this. So I could say that maybe I want this to be smaller in a different color, maybe I want this to be bold, and this isn't something I can do within with the stylized text. So this is one benefit. The second benefit, and I'll go into this a bit later on, is with the rich text element, what we're actually doing here is a component that displays HTML. So we can set this HTML from a script later on to create kind of dynamic text that changes based on user input. And doing this with the stylized text component, we don't really get as much freedom. So what we'll do is we'll leave this, we'll change this back to black because having red text is a terrible to look at, and then we'll just click apply, and then we'll go back and we'll delete our stylized text. Let's give this a label and an ID of header call this header rich text. Okay, so we've got a header now. I might make that a bit bigger actually. Okay, so we've got a header now. So now we want to create some user inputs. So to do that, we could add components underneath our header campaign, underneath our header. But what we're going to do instead is we're going to use the layout, create a new layout. So what we'll do is we'll create a 2-column layout. And we can see that in our component tree now we've got column 1, column 2, whereas with our 1-column layout we had column 1. And we'll give this a name, and we'll call this select a survey layout. And we'll add our component, but what we'll do is we'll have another rich text element here, rich text, and we'll just say select which survey should be sent to customer. Let's give that a name, select survey rich text. So I've got an error there because we can't have a space in an ID. Okay, let's make that a bit bigger as well. Okay, so and now to the right of that, so again we could add a component by clicking the add content link under column 2, or by simply clicking this plus icon. So what we'll do is we'll click this, and now we're going to add our first interactive component. So there is a component we can use called a select component. And this behaves a little bit like a reference field in the back end of the platform. So we give it basically an array of objects. So out of the box we've kind of got this static list here, and I believe if we click this icon and go to the JSON, we can see that this is the information that's being used to populate the list. What we're going to do in a later video, I won't go into it now because we need to create a data resource and it will make this video too long, is we're going to do a query records from the back end and use that information to populate this field. So for the time being we're just going to leave this here as unconfigured. What we will do is we'll just remove the label, because obviously we've got a label just to the left of it here. Okay, so we've got our first interactive component and a subheading. So next we'll add another layout component. So I could add that layout component by clicking this plus icon here, using the add content. what I'm going to do is I'll click that one there and add another 2-column layout underneath. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add our 2 date selectors. So we'll add another rich text and we'll say select dates the survey should be sent and expire, and then we'll edit this HTML, make this 18. We've got a lot of different sizes here, so let me just go and edit this and make this 18 as well. And then what I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to stack my 2 date time components one on top of each other. So I'll add the first date time component by clicking date time. So you won't be able to see this component in the same way you can see the select icon, because it needs to be configured before it will show. So if we scroll down in the with the component still selected, if we scroll down to in the component panel and look for format, and we give this a format, so let's say we want this to be day, month, capital M's, and then year. Now we can see that that component's now visible. So we'll give this one a label of when to send. Make it a bit more descriptive than that actually. When to send survey. And then we'll add another datetime selector underneath this component. So what we'll do is we'll click this with the component selected. We'll click this icon here, this plus icon, and we'll click date time again. And then we'll add. You can see here we've got one datetime component and another datetime component. We can't see this one because it's not configured. So we'll go back to formats, and we can have different date time formats. So obviously I went day, month, year. We could have year, month, day, for example, to have like an ISO format. And there we can see that that's configured with that format. But to keep things the same, let's just have day, month, year. Okay, so finally we'll just edit the label on this one. Okay, and that's our user input created. Not the prettiest user input in the world, but this is going to allow our user to select a survey and select 2 dates. Oh, I didn't have my button. So we'll add one more layout, and then inside that layout we'll add a button. So a couple of different buttons to choose from. Let's have just a standard button, and we'll call this button create, and we'll just center this button. So if we go into the styles tab, we've got some alignment options here. So if we click this center icon, that's now in the center. And that's probably enough. So let's just go back and name all these. So we'll call this one create. and then name our two date time selectors. So this one will be when to expire date time. Could probably just call this one expire date time. And then finally our when to send. So when I'm giving things labels and names, probably should have mentioned this earlier, I like to say what the component type is at the end of the label. Just again, when this gets full later, everything you can do to make this as easy to navigate as possible is you'll thank yourself for it. Send date time. And ideally you'd name these as we create them, not go back after the fact. Okay, then finally just need to name our select box. So select. Okay, and that's our first page created. In the next video we'll look at querying some records from the database using a data resource, and then using a client script to process that data to populate the survey rich text field. Okay, thanks for watching.